Oscar/Wild666.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for talking to me today.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to go across country and meet my family and, just come break bread with us. That means a lot to me and us.
Absolutely, bro. The hospitality has been just very warm and very welcoming. So we really appreciate you guys. And yeah, it's been a great trip so far. So again, appreciate you because 100% that is a big reason that we took this trip, like we were talking about earlier. But I think that you're an interesting dude. And we were chatting and I was like, hey, are you down for this? And you were like, bet, let's go.
Yeah, and I love that we were off the premise of hey, don't go too much into depth with me, let's do it on film, so getting the content today it's going to be amazing, so we can actually get to know each other on a deeper level. You've seen a lot of surface level, which I love that you appreciate, but this gives me the opportunity to actually get to know who is Oscar behind Wild. So thank you for giving me the platform.
Absolutely. So let's start off. I usually like to start out childhood, the foundation of all of us as people, as adults. So tell me about you growing up.
So growing up, I grew up to a single mother. My grandmother was a big part of my life. She took on a lot of the role of, not that my mom did anything, subpar, but, she worked a lot because she had 3 kids. So my grandmother Beatrice, or Beatrice, named one of my daughters after her. She was a pillar of my childhood. And she kind of was like the neighborhood mom to all my cousins and, my close friends growing up. So, I was a little reckless, that's where Wild 666 comes from. I've always been kind of free spirited. I've done what I want when I want. It's got me into some trouble, but for the most part, growing up, I was a skater kid. So I was really out in the street touching grass, as kids would say now all the time, skateboarding, just really doing whatever I wanted. So really good shout on that note. Of course, as a lot of youth, we try to find ourselves. I never really know who I was. You find out through music and art, and skateboarding was a way of expressing myself. So a lot of stuff I didn't know what I was dealing with, I'll say words like depression, anxiety, until I grew up and found out, a little bit about me. But childhood wasn't, I'm not going to compare it to anybody because we all have our own story. But it was pretty good. It was pretty good for the most part.
You were a skater kid.
Yes, sir.
You still skate?
If my ankles allowed me to, skateboarding, and now I realize it. My mother used to always tell me, this is dangerous, you're going to hurt yourself, and, 4 broke ankles, concussion, scarred up knees, shin splits to this day. I don't think I could do it if I wanted to these days, but.
How did that influence you, who you are now?
Oh, it's all about culture, I think that's why I have that free spirit, because being out there is just you and your friends in the street. We used to have rules back in the day. When the street lights come on, that's when it's time to come home. So it was way different than it is now, so it was just me and my friends out there really fending for ourselves. It was us literally against the world. We would make sure we all got food together. If I had money, my friends would. If I didn't, they would, hey, let's go grab a burger or let's get a drink, so some good times, man. I think it really made me who I was, because we really were defending for ourselves out there.
What was it like growing up in San Antonio? Did you grow up in San Antonio?
Yes, sir.
What was it like?
I loved it. It's a really, as you've been here already, the last day, it's a really tight, it goes back to the culture, you have your people, and friends are not just friends, they're family. So even my neighbors, as you pull up, they're probably wondering who's this in this Tesla, they see it, they watch us, and growing up in San Antonio is just that, it's family,
Tell me about your grandma a little bit more. Tell me about Beatrice.
My grandma Beatrice was, I loved her. She was, the epitome of what a mother should be. This house that you're at now, this house is open to all my family and friends. Whoever needs a place, as you saw, my tia lives here right now. The door's always open. That's the way it's always going to be. There's friends that had growing up that had rough childhoods, but we had this place of safety. So this was a place people knew they can come. Hey, I haven't ate. Tell my grandma, hey, grandma, my friend hasn't eaten dinner. Tell him to come eat dinner with us. I'll make him some food. I'll send him some food, So that's the type of person she was. She loved everyone. She saw through what people would see as oh, this kid's a problem child. No, this kid needs love. This kid needs, time. We're going to give him that. So that's who my grandmother was.
What do you think effect that had on you? How did she make you who you are?
I think it's in my soul. It's embedded in my soul, I try not to judge people. I live life. I try to live life without ego, because I think ego destroys, people, friendships, relationships. So I'm not going to, look down on someone because they're having a hard time, because in reality, we're all one bad situation from losing it all, So if someone needs help, I'm going to help them. Even if I'm not in a position to help out, I'm going to do my best to get them the resources and help out, because that's what she would want.
I want to touch on that ego. I think that's really interesting. And so obviously part of why I'm here is because you run this Discord server called Cult of Wild.
Yes, sir.
And you it's a cult, so some could say that you would be like the cult leader. I think that's like a fair.
Yes.
And being a cult leader, I would say there is like an immediate ego attached to that. And I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts on that is in terms of like you trying. Obviously, we all have an ego to different degrees, and even people who are trying to be egoless, there's an ego in that. I think. I'm just curious on your thoughts on that, on like sort of the dichotomy of being a cult leader, in quotes, I'm quoting, and trying to let go of ego.
Well, that's actually a great question because the whole Code of Wild comes from a story of middle school, actually. So I had a teacher, her name's Miss Sperlin. So if you're out there, Miss Sperlin, thank you for this idea because it resonated, 20, 30 years later. So I've always been, I guess the word she said was charismatic. She's like, Oscar, and she just called me Golden Boy. For y'all that watch boxing, there's a boxer named Oscar De La Hoya. First name's Oscar, so she's like, you're the golden boy. And I said earlier, I was a wild child, but I had the gift of gab. I've always had a, silver tongue. I could talk my way out of anything. So she would always tell me, like, you should be in trouble today, but, just, you that charisma. And she told me one time, because I'm not going to say, I'm going to say allegedly, I did something really bad. And she was like, you should be in trouble. I should be calling your mother and your grandmother, and they'll be very disappointed in you. But she's just like, I can't. Like, the way you just talk and the way you just care, because it's authentic. It's not just fake. Like, she's like, I could see you running a cult one day. Like, and in my head, I didn't, from my code, it was like, drink the Kool-Aid, Jonestown. And like, man, that's kind of bad, But as I grew up and, I was looking for this Twitch, because Twitch and Discord's all about branding. What's going to separate me from the rest? There's a dime a dozen Discords, dime a dozen, Twitch streamers, So I started branding and I figured, what's going to get people clicking, and it hit me, Code of Wild, like, I'll be a cult leader, drink the Kool-Aid, and a lot of times that's, goes hand in hand, like, oh, people think, oh, he believes in Satan, or he's, anti-religion, all that, but, it's really it's honestly just marketing, and I'm sorry if you think it's something else out there, guys, but it's marketing, and I think it's something that does pull people in, because either they love it, like, oh my God, Code of Wild, or they're like, oh, Code of Wild, and then they meet me, they're like, oh, you're not this Satan cult leader, So to answer your question about, like, the ego, I mean, I think that's what it is. They come meet me, they think I have ego, but once they get to know me, so it's kind of just getting them in the door, like, who is this guy? Is he egotistical? Is he narcissistic? And they talk to me like, oh, you're none of that. So it's really just to get them in the door, because that's how you market yourself. You need something that's going to stand out. So I think I found the perfect way, and it matches, our branding, and, it's working so far. You're here, you drove across country, so.
I have a lot of questions from that because you said a lot. But the first thing I want to ask you is, what was your teacher's name? Miss
Sperlin.
Do you think Miss Sperlin meant that in a good way when she said she could see you running a cult?
She was smiling it, and I know, like, I was in middle school in, like, late 90s, early 2000s. So I'm sure, there was some like, oh, like, you're bad, and I would love for you to be out of my class already. But I think, she didn't mean malice. I think she knew I had a good heart, because if she thought the opposite, I think I would have been in trouble and suspended and stuff a lot. So I think she kind of saw me for what I needed, and she was a great teacher because she let me be who I was, so I think that's another, like, developing stage, another defining moment is what I'll call it. They didn't construct me to anything.
So then another question I have, going back to something you said, and not that you saying yes to this can't, like, there's not one or the other, but you said, a lot of people think that you're like anti-religious or Satan worshiping or whatever. Are you religious?
So me, so this goes into stuff I'm sure we'll dig deeper into it. I find a hard time, believing in religion when I've battled, like, mental health, struggles. I'll say struggles because I'm getting better at them, but it's hard to even believe in myself at times. So how can I believe in a higher being if, it's allowing me to go through these hardships and struggles? So I know that's like another thing to dive in deep, but I can see the opposite of that, how people do look for faith because, they fall into that. I'm just opposite. And to me, I'm still learning, I'm 37 years old, and maybe I will find religion. My grandfather just passed away 2 weeks ago, and we went to a church service where my family's Catholic. So, listening to a priest talk about, kind of, I think they're getting better with relating to the youth and, different people in church, because it did touch me. I was like, okay, like, this makes sense. So I'm not saying I won't be religious ever, but right now, I'm betting on myself right now is what I'm doing.
And again, like I said, not that you saying yes, I'm religious would cancel. Like, it's not one or the other, right? Like, I think what you said is very good, honestly. Tell me about depression.
So I'm learning because you hear words all the time: depression, anxiety, ADHD, and a list of mental illness. And I've been diagnosed for several years, and up to maybe about 2 years ago, I really didn't take it serious. I grew up, I'm Hispanic, and in our culture, it's I'm gonna say it's just frowned upon. We have this machismo. You're supposed to be a strong Mexican male. Depression. I make this joke on stream. Like Mexicans will believe in el cucuy, which is like a monster boogeyman, but they don't believe in mental health when their children are literally depressed. So I think it's backwards. So that's why I started streaming, because I wanted a platform to be the change I want to see in the world. Like I'm a single father of 3 daughters. I don't want them growing up, thinking the way like I was raised. I don't want them to feel alone in this world. I want them to know, hey, it's okay to talk. It's okay to not be okay. But what's not okay is not doing anything to correct that. And I think that's what a problem is with a lot of us. A lot of people will cry, but they won't hold themselves accountable. And a lot of times mental health starts with us. What am I doing to change, the way I feel? And depression to me, it's real. And I know a lot of us have many forms. It's a spectrum. Some people might feel a little sad and take an extra 30 minutes to get ready for work. Some people the bed wins and it keeps them there 5 days. And I've been on both sides of those. But it's something that I feel that I'm glad you're giving me this platform to talk about, because it's very important to me and I hold it close to my heart.
What are, because you said in there like the things that you're trying to do to sort of like address that, like learn about it. So what are some of those things?
So whenever I stream, a lot of streamers these days, they have like these rules where it's positive vibes only, and I get that, it's gonna, sometimes people are empaths and they take on what they bring. But to me, I think one of the reasons I say we are successful, because it's not just me. This is a whole community of people. I think we're successful because, we take anybody, if you're having a bad day, tell me. If you're having a good day, tell me. If you're having it doesn't matter day, tell me that, I'll take it all. It's not just about good vibes, because at the end we're human. And I think what happens with like, I'll say the word social media influencers and like, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, is they forget that we're human, and like some of these people have wives, some of these people have separations, their kids are sick, their dog died, their grandmother died, grandfather died, just, like mine. And people forget that, and they come to you because they feel safe there. Who am I to like take that safe space away from them and be like, I'm sorry your mom died, but we're only positive vibes here. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not, punching down anybody that does that. I get that, because, I am empathetic as well. But I think, for me personally, if you're going to take the time of the day, because there's people that come watch me for hours, what I could pause my Apex ranked game to listen to, someone that's hurting, because they're coming to me for a reason, they're not just a number or a viewer to me.
Tell me about streaming.
Streaming's amazing. I took on this venture because two things. I had a cousin, his name was Chris. I take fall damage on Facebook Gaming. If anybody wants to go check him out, his VODs and archives are still there. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he was my best friend growing up. I loved him to death, and he's one of the good ones we lost. He was a streamer. He streamed mostly Fortnite and a couple other games on Facebook Gaming. And everyone's always told, us growing up, like you, Chris, and my brother, you'll meet him shortly. You're all the same. You're so funny. You're so just like, you're the life of the party all the time. And with him streaming, I love his mods and like his community. He grew to like 90,000 followers on Facebook. So he was a pretty big streamer. They always be like, why don't you try that? Why don't you do that? And when he passed away, I was going through a lot of stuff mentally myself too, and then losing him. So I figured, there has to be, people out there like me that feel alone right now, that are, looking, for that connection, but that don't want to like get overstimulated in real life, with just like, because it's tough sometimes. You meet people and like, your battery might be dead, but you're still stuck out. So I was like, let me try streaming out, so I did. And everybody, was right. Like I was nervous about it, but my first stream, I had double-digit viewers, which, on Twitch, like if you don't set the foundation, some people sit with one viewer, which is just a friend or them, for months without traction. So I'm goal-oriented. So I tell myself, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. If I don't hit affiliate within that first 7 days they give you on Twitch, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to touch it. The first 7 days I did hit affiliate, and I was already getting, close to 20, digit viewers on the stream. So I hit the ground running, and I started finding people, of course, the depression, mental health, like they're having tough days. So I started cultivating this community with, a good friend of mine, my best friend, Trash Panda. You'll get to meet her soon. And she's been this whole way with me, just giving a home for people that didn't have that home, that were looking for that family, for that friendship, and just that bonding. And Discord is the place, for people like us. I know I may not seem introverted. Every time I'm on stream, 30, 40 people, I'm talking and laughing, but I'm the type that loves his solitude. So after cameras are off, Twitch is off, I like being by myself, and I think Discord, there's a lot of people like that. We can jump on, video calls and watch movies together, play games, but then when we're tired, all we have to do is log off and we can recharge. So we found that correlation with mental health and video games was just hand in hand. So I don't know. I don't know if it was luck. I believe that everything happens for a reason, but it's been beautiful, meeting these people and these connections, and just knowing that we're not alone. I see myself in a lot of other people, and I'm sure they see the same, and that's why, there's loyalty here to me. So I just want to keep giving back. I wouldn't be here without them. And I've said it from the beginning. You can go through archives in Discord. It's about we, not me. And it goes back to the ego thing. I've never put myself above the community. I've been going through a lot of stuff, but I always put the next cultist above me, because we wouldn't be here without them.
We're going to get to the cult shortly. We're almost there, but it's still a little off, because as I've been talking to cultists, people on this trip, Trash Panda, Tash, as we're talking about you, basically, keeps coming up where they're like, yeah, these are these two. So I feel like we're at a perfect time because you brought her up. Tell me about Tasha.
So I met Tasha maybe a few months. I'm not really, it's been over 3 years now before I started streaming. So me and her have been close since before streaming. So she's taken on streaming head on with me from the beginning. So from the first stream to now. And that's big because now we're over 2,000 followers. So from 0 to 2,000 followers to growing this whole community. So I honestly don't think I would be this far without her. She really is a rock in my life, even personal. I have nothing but love for her family. She's been good to me. So a lot of people that are going to be watching this know that I stream from console. And that's important because, Twitch, it's not, it's not that you can't do it without a PC. But a lot of stuff with Twitch and Discord, it's easier with the PC. And I've prided myself with that because I was on a PS4, the old console, it's been years since that was out, and I broke 1,000 followers, and I was doing stuff that's unheard of on PlayStation, essentially. It took my daughter's Just Dance camera, and I was using that to stream, so people always come to me how are you doing this? I have this 2,000 plus rig and, all this, but I'm just be yourself. And Tasha's always instilled that in me, just keep being yourself. Doesn't matter if you don't have a PC right now. It doesn't matter if you can't budget or anything. She's always coached me, and she's always, been there to lift me up when I've gotten down on myself. And she does a lot of the technical stuff, I have ideas all day, and that's why me and you connected, because we had this idea, let's do this. So she makes it come to life. If I thought of something right now, I can text her and say, hey, I want this. She'll give me about an hour later and it'll be done. So the Discord, the community, everything is because of her. She is the backbone. She really is. So I'm glad for y'all to meet her. I'm glad you're going to meet her and you're going to get to talk to her, because she really is the backbone here.
No, and that's what a lot of, literally someone else said almost exactly that, where they're you were the beating heart and she's the veins, I think is what someone said. But it's the delivery method for the heart. And yeah, that's just, obviously that's apparent. And definitely as I was talking to people, it became apparent to me, where I think I asked Cass, I'm am I not talking about Tasha enough? Am I messing up? I literally asked her. So yeah, tell me about the cult.
So Quota Wild it's an entity, it's, I built it with, I think this goes back to kind of the ego thing. I know what we have here special, but I always tell everybody it's not a forever home. And I mean that, with Discord and Twitch, there's a lot of gatekeeping. And to me, what we have is works. And I offer everything to everybody. hey, this works for us. Here's how we did this, so I'm going to be the first one to help you out. We worked with something on our Discord. It was called, because they call me Baphomet, on there, I'm the cult leader. So we messed around with something called Buddy Baphomet, which is kind of like a coaching system. So what we do is, what I learned that works, I teach everyone. If you need help, if you're struggling with viewership, you're struggling with affiliate, you're struggling with, maintaining numbers or keeping them, I'll coach you, and I offer that service free to them, because to me, the platform's so huge. Why am I going to gatekeep it? Why not inspire someone, and then they bring more people for us to inspire? There's no reason to hold anything away from anybody. To the way I see it, and I think that's another reason why we're successful. We're not going to hold anything from anybody here, and everyone feels that. They come to me with anything. It's not even just streaming, like mental health. I'm no doctor, but I've lived life, so I can break down with them personally, hey, this has happened to me. This is how I handle it, things of that nature. Because at the end of the day, I'm human too. I'm not just this Discord leader, this, huge streamer. I'm a person, so I keep that, I'm personable with them. And I think that's what keeps us running. They can shoot me a message and I'll respond to them, as soon as I can. And we have that connection.
But it's so antithetical to like a cult. And this is when we were talking, because of course, like part of the reason I came here also, I find you very interesting, and I find this idea of this cult very interesting. And we've done a little bit of talking. We as you said, we really did wait to like chop it up, so to speak, on this interview. But one thing that you did say to me was basically that, where you're like, hey, like, we're not telling anybody like you have to stay here, like you have to be in this thing, like you can come here, learn, and like you said, it's like not a forever home. And I just wonder, like, how do you marry those two things, I guess? Because like I said, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that is like literally antithetical to the concept of a cult, but it works for you.
Yeah, and the way it works, like, because it is, kind of like, the juxtaposition on it is kind of crazy when you think about it. But the way I see it is this, like, that builds loyalty, like when you put, straps on people, like you control them. It's like a abusive or toxic relationship, dating someone. Like, you don't do that. If you love someone, you really do give them that freedom, and you let them explore and you learn. Some people leave, some people come back. So with this, what I feel is something beautiful inside when I see people like you coming down from Canada. Like, that touched my heart. I'm like, I say it on stream all the time. And Cass, if you hear this is just for this, but I always say I'm just a scumbag out of Texas, And I really was. I was just some little punk skater that, happened to come across Twitch, and now I have friends from all over the world, and that's crazy in its own, right? Like, I shouldn't have friends in South London or, Australia or Canada. Like, people shouldn't be wearing, my brand on their shirts in Colorado or New York. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to this day. But I think giving that freedom to them, like, truly being there for them as a human, opens up that, like, they want to stay, so it's not me telling you, hey, you have to stay here to get these benefits. Like, no, at the end of the day, we're human. We're all trying to, get our peace, like, why not, help you out? I'm sure karma will come back, and, bless us. And it has, it truly has. Circling back to this opportunity again, like, I wouldn't be in this position if, you didn't come to that stream, with your partner and be like, oh man, who is this guy? He really is nice. He's genuine. Like, because that is me. A lot of people think, not think, but a lot of people on platforms like that, they wear a mask. They mask all the time. That's not who they are. And, I am me. I might not be like the, most politically correct person, but it's all love. It really is all love. And, I got love for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. People just need it. That's what I want to do. That's my calling.
I definitely trusted you when I found out you were an Eagles fan.
Yeah, go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
World champs. I want to ask why you call yourself a scumbag.
So it's kind of just a play of words, I come from like the culture of music and like, teenage dirtbag, like scumbag, it's funny to me because, I know at heart, I am a good person, I've raised 3 beautiful daughters. I have great relationships, friendships. I just think it's just like, it's always been, me growing up, tattoos, long hair, had dreads when I was a kid, skateboarded, just scumbag stuff, I was out there, allegedly underage drinking, smoking marijuana, just... Allegedly. Yeah, allegedly. But that's just what it is. It's not like, I really do, I know there's greatness in me and I know there's love in me. It's just, it's kind of just how, I guess the way I feel people perceive me and still perceive me to this day, A lot of people don't know, they see me right now, but I worked corporate America for like 15 years. I was running meetings with like literally like leaders of banks, and then when I turned my camera on with COVID, they're like, what? Like, who is this guy? So that's where it comes from. I have been perceived like that, I was good enough to, run meetings for, 3 teams of 20. But when they saw me with full sleeve tattoos and a beard, they're like, "Oh no, who's this guy?" Then I wasn't taken seriously. So it does come from some stuff that I've experienced. But at the end of the day, like, I know who I am and I love me. So I'm not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but I do love me. So,
Do you think there's people who think you're a bad person?
oh yeah, of course, and I think it comes with with growth and stuff and putting yourself under the spotlight, and that's something that my advice to all these streamers are watching this or experiencing this. It's gonna happen, but be true to yourself. There's people, and that goes for everyone. We're the villain in tons of people's stories. I've been called narcissistic. I've been called wolf in sheep's clothing. Like I've been called like some pretty gnarly stuff. And it's like, I'm the same person that was on the phone with you 3 hours when I met you 2 days ago because, you were feeling, sad and you want to do something that you maybe couldn't take it back, but because I don't fit in your plan no more, and now I'm a bad guy. So, I don't let bad situations change my character, and I won't, bring up direct names. I won't ever throw dirt on their name because to me, that shows where they're hurting right now. So, if they think bad of me, they think bad of me. I'm not here to prove it to them. My people that are close to me know who I am. They know my character, and I stand on that. So. Yeah, it's gonna come though. People do. There's tons of people even right now, I'm sure that don't like me. There's probably tons of people that are envious that you decide to come interview me and some of my friends from my community. And I just think I don't have that time to put energy out to stoop to their level. I'd rather just keep eyes forward and keep moving forward and doing things for me, my people.
Tell me about your people. Tell me about your daughters.
My daughters, they're my absolute best friends. I remember the day I found out I was having twins. I didn't know how to be a dad. I grew up without a father. So that's always been kind of a tough situation for me. Growing up, not learning to do stuff that a dad normally would quote unquote teach. But we went to go to do the sonogram. I remember his name was Dr. Al-Hakim. I was so nervous because I didn't know anything about any of this, and he brings out the sonogram and he's like, well, yeah, like you are pregnant. He's like, there's your baby, but. And I remember my heart dropped. I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, but there's your other baby. And I literally got up and I made some noises. I was shocked. I didn't know how to be a dad, and I was being told I was going to have 2 babies. So it was shocking, but best thing that ever happened. Like they changed my life, I did do scumbag things back in the day. I wasn't the best person, but having daughters, it kind of puts life into perspective for you. I'm sure having sons too, but being a guy and having daughters, like what, man, like this is beautiful. We gotta treat people with respect. Like I want my daughters to be treated great. So it just made me look at life through a different lens. And then about a year and a half later, we found out we were pregnant again with my little creep show, and she completed me, having my 3 daughters. Like I was blessed with twins, so like that was on its own, like, a blessing. And my 3rd one. So I love sharing everything with them. And they were, kind of have to come today to come meet y'all and hang out with us and stuff so y'all can meet them. But yeah, they're amazing. Like I love them. I wouldn't be who I am without them.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, man. They're pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to start streaming? I know you've had them on stream.
Yeah. So a creep show, my youngest one, she's a huge fan of horror games, and I think she will. I think that's going to be a way she goes. My twins, I'm not too sure right now. They're into sports and stuff, and I'm going to let them explore. Like to me, not that my mother or family ever like put pressure for us to do anything, but I think it's really important to let kids, find out who they are and, kind of go through experiences, and guide them and support them in whatever they want to do, and whether that's band, theater, streaming, gaming, I'm just here to support them. I'm their biggest fan. So whatever they want to do, I'll be there. If it's streaming, that's great. We established community, can pass it to them. If it's not, that's awesome too. But I have one daughter, one of the twins, she's cracked at Fortnite. So Riot, if you ever play builds out there and you want to get served up, right? She's diamond.
Okay. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. I love that. You have, there's twins in your family, right?
Yes, my mother's a twin. Yeah, my mother and my aunt, or Thea Terry. I didn't know. So that's another funny story going back to like my twin story, because it turns out everyone in my family knew that since I was the youngest sibling and my brother and sister already had kids and they weren't twins, they knew I was going to have twins and I didn't know. So I told you, I was like, what the fuck, to the doctor? Sorry, Mr. Al-Hakim, but I really was shocked. I called my mother and she already knew. She was like, having twins? And I was like, what? I was like, no one gave me like, that heads up, So supposedly it skips a generation. So, that's where we're at.
Interesting. Yeah, it would have been nice to like, be prepared for one thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to Twitch a little bit. You started off like super hot right away, and then you've been going for 3 years?
gonna be 3 years, May 11th, and starting hot wasn't everything I do. Like I work hard at, so learning through my cousin Chris how to take fall damage on Facebook gaming, I know you have to establish a foundation. So I got lucky. One of his best friends, I won't say her name, but she was migrating from YouTube streaming to Twitch. So I've always been naturally good at like the charisma and marketing and stuff. So I got out there and I was pushing her account, so learning the ropes on Twitch, like learning how to the words networking on Twitch, learn how to meet people, finding people who play the same games, same interests. So in helping her establish, getting affiliate through Twitch, I met tons of people that were the same thing. Like, you should stream too. Like, why aren't you streaming? Like, you're doing all this for her. We hear you on commentary playing Apex and Fortnite out there. Like, you'll do well. So when I started streaming, I had my first stream, I was at, I believe, right under 60 followers before I hit live. And even then, I was still kind of skeptic. I don't want to do it. But when I hit it, people came. And I was like, wow, there's 10 people in here. It's my first stream. I've helped my friend who's been established on Facebook and YouTube, and she's breaking. And I'm saying this as a modest, 3-4 viewers, because we all start somewhere. It's not a race here, But I'm very analytical, so I saw the difference. Like, well, I am doing something good here. So that's why, going back to Code of Wild and me starting hot, was I found out what worked immediately through trial and error. I found out through my friend streamer and myself. So I'm all about like teaching people that get out there and actually don't expect just to hit live and get 20 viewers. You got to get out there and work. So when I first started, me and Trashman and me and Tasha and even a good friend of mine, Trippy Hippie Mama, who you met today, we were on Twitch like it was a job, 8 hours a day, finding new streamers. Okay, we meet with them. Hey, come check out this person. Now we do it on a larger scale, but it was just 3 of us going into streams, meeting people, like, okay, they're our style. They have our humor. We're good. Bring them in. So we were bringing people into our. It wasn't even our Discord at that time. It was Trippy Hippie Mamas. So we were bringing people into a Discord, getting to know them, and that's how it was. Just rinse and repeat. Hey, a smaller streamer. They're cool. They're our friend. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And then what ended up happening was kind of the same way. You were like, you're interesting. I met a Twitch partner, like in my first couple of months of streaming. And he was like, wild. He's like, what you're doing is literally unheard of. He's like, you had affiliate your first week. He's like, I have people in my Discord that are streaming 6-7 months and they get an affiliate. So I was like, okay, maybe I do have something here. He's like, what you need to do is you need your own branding and your own community Discord. Because I didn't even really care for Discord at that time. We were running through Trippy Hippie Mamas, and I was just like, I don't want my own Discord. That's a lot of work, like no, that's not for me. I'm here just to meet people and stuff. And he was like, dude, he's like, you need to make it. So we had a Discord established, but it was just kind of bare bones. And one day I called Trashman. I was like, what's the password to it? Like, I'm going to rebrand. And I just sat there and I cooked up Code of Wild. And for me personally, I wanted to like be separate from, everyone that, had Discord and streaming. So I love horror movies and I love, that, like, that aesthetic, the creepy culture, and true crime. So I just got to cooking and like, I was impressed with myself. And then people started coming here and, a new baby streamer went from brand new to like people actually hearing about me and my name getting out there. And that was crazy in its own too. Like there was no reason like a Twitch partner should even know who Wild666 was with 70 followers at that time, but they did. So shout out to that guy. I don't want to give that guy's name either right now, of course, because I want to respect people's privacy. But he gave me that push, and we created Code of Wild, and that baby streamer just didn't stop. Kept going, and here we are today.
Is it called like an island of misfit toys?
That's what I would say. In my bio, I should know what my bio says, but it's something along those lines, like a space for misfits and outcasts, that come along together, and this is where we belong, man. A lot of people, we may not be their cup of tea, we might not relate to them, they may not want to relate to us, they might not be honest with themselves, but I am. I see myself in every member. I'm not gonna, I don't think of myself as some hierarchy, like, oh, I'm Baphomet or Coat Daddy, like, don't message me. Like, no, my DMs are open to everybody, no matter, who you are. If you need someone to talk to, I'm gonna be there. And, we're just a bunch of misfits just vibing,
So, I want to ask you why Baphomet, but I want to say, like, I didn't even know about this demon until my good friend TJ, who I think I will interview one day, but we did a project in college together, and this guy's like a high level, like, creative mind. Why Baphomet?
Because it's provocative, you know. It's like Baphomet, like, you know what, like, you know, clutching pearls, and it just goes back to the aesthetic and the marketing of it, you know. On in our Discord, it goes back to standing out. So we have, you know, of course, like, I'm not religious, but we have the satanic temple like levels in our system, you know. So high priest, high priestess, Baphomet, you know, down to like the bottom of, like, you know, just like new cultists. So it just goes with the aesthetic is where it comes from, honestly.
How did you find out about it, the Baphomet, though?
Just really, like, I was looking to see what's gonna get people talking the most, you know. And Baphomet, you know, even right now, you're like, you know, Baphomet, you know, even your stuff that knows me, yeah,
Unique. It's definitely
yeah.
unique, like,
So
in terms of demons you could choose.
that's what it was, you know.
Interesting. How do you want to grow? Like, how do you want to grow? And then we can also talk about your Twitch too. But like, yeah, what do you want to grow? What do you want to change? What do you want to grow into?
So that's a great question. So this is one of those questions that keeps me up at night, you know, and adds to my anxiety, because I think we're our biggest critics, you know, and I know I'm very self-aware. I have major, you know, imposter syndrome. You know, for those that know what it is I see myself in a low light most days, you know, but I'm reminded with, you know, even things like this, like, you drove across country to meet me. So that kind of, like, you know, my family's stoked for it. You know, my family is starting to see, like, oh, this is something, you're doing something in life, not just Twitch. It is Twitch based, but if you're touching, you know, someone, you know, on a level to where they're going to come, you know, meet in your people, like, that's something, and that's exciting. You literally have opened the door, you know, for my family to actually really, you know, now put their head in the ring for me. So what I want to do is I just want to keep being a better person. And I know that sounds generic, but you know, the world we live in right now, the climate, you know, everywhere, it's rough, you know, and I want to be that change in the world. You know, my daughters are growing, you know, I have 3 young Latina daughters that are going to have to go through adversities, and, you know, I want to do my best, you know, with what resources I have to change it, even if it's just a little bit for them, you know. And that's what I want to do. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better man. I want to be a better brother, a better son, you know, better partner. You know, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to grow.
And what about the Twitch?
The Twitch, and
because just to, not to cut you off, but just because I know that your Twitch had been, I think I haven't been there for too long, but I think a lot of battle royale, first, like Apex basically, which I also fuck with Apex like way back in the day, but and now you're playing Detroit. Great game. You're expanding into more single player stuff. Would you even frequently say, like, I don't know, I'm not super confident, Tell me where you want to grow your Twitch.
So with Twitch, I'm open to it, you know, and the Apex. So there's actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because there's a reason why I do Apex over, like, you know, single player games or like expanding. It's not for what most people think. Yeah, the confidence is kind of low in it, but it's because Apex, I feel I'm fairly good at it to where I can go autopilot and I can read chat, you know, and like, it's just muscle memory. I'm just shooting and just playing my game, but it gives me the opportunity to actually still be focused on chat. And a lot of people are like, how do you do that? Because, like, there's a lot of times there's 30, 40, 50 people in there and the chat's running and I'm playing high level ranked Apex, you know, and I'm still like able to like greet people and, you know, bring them in, talk to first time chatters and stuff like that. But when it comes to, like, most recently we beat Resident Evil 1 on stream, and I am so self-conscious that, like, you know, oh, like, I'm stuck in this spot for 30 minutes or an hour, because me and Tasha were stuck on a spot for an hour, where it's like I'm like forgetting chats there and I'm more just focused on the game. And even that, I've thought about it, because, like I said, I go over analytics, and there are some people that are there just for story, you know, and it's nothing against me, and, you know, it's not that they don't like me, but they're there because they love Resident Evil 1 or whatever game is, so they don't mind you going through the motions and going through it. So as far as growth for Twitch, you know, I'm gonna keep doing what feels right at that time, you know. That's not saying I won't play Apex for another 2 years, or I might, you know, I might go do the Resident Evil series or whatever the case is. You know, if it feels right that day, I'll do that. You know, and I say I'm a variety streamer, and, you know, everyone knows I'm barely a variety streamer. But you know, if it feels nice, I'm gonna do it, and that will be changing soon. A lot of people don't know this might be breaking, but when I first started streaming, I had a couple of, you know, good friends of mine that have been donating parts to build my PC. And my PC has all the parts needed, but you know, the friend that's gonna help me build it is going through some life events too, so I have no pressure, because I've survived with consoles so far. So whenever he's ready to come and show me the ropes on building it, we'll be migrating to PC, and that's gonna open doors for us. You know, as everybody knows that has a PC, I can have Steam, and I can play, you know, pretty much whatever. So
you can play Repo.
Yep.
Or what else is Schedule 1 right now? Yep. So popular. It's true. There's a whole like I don't know like meme games almost I call them, but like genre of gaming now that's just like what's cool on stream and on Steam for like $10. That'd be awesome. So no more Just Dance camera. You're saying?
No more Just Dance camera.
Buddy, end of an era. End of an era. I'd be happy to look at this stuff too. Just to be like, oh yeah, you put this here, do this here. Wow. Damn, that's awesome, man. How do you feel about that?
I'm excited. I feel kind of like, because I always tell myself, like, that was kind of my, my niche. Like, I grew, because it was crazy, people coming, like, you're on, because when I was on PS4, you could tell the PS4, like, little chat, like, oh, you're still on PS4? And I had people try to throw shade, and I'm not I'm not really, like, not the pettiest, but sometimes I'll clap back, like I'm on PS4, but I'm averaging 32 viewers right now. Like, what are you at? And then crickets, So sometimes you have to let them know a little bit, like I am on PS4, but they're here for me. Like, these are my friends, they love talking to me. So, if you're out there and you want to stream, just do it. A lot of people say I only have Xbox, I have no camera. Hey, get on there. Maybe they'll like your commentary. Maybe like, a lot of even big YouTubers, you go back, like even like Moist Critical, Charlie Penguin Zero, he started with no cam, so. Yeah, see? And then now they're like not even just millions, like 10, 15, 20 million followers. So just do it, and that goes on all of life. And that's what I was telling my daughters earlier too. Like, you heard us, like there's gonna be opportunities that come in your life, don't be scared, just say yes. Like, it doesn't matter, just say yes, get yourself out there. One thing I tell stream chat is, if you get comfortable, you're not growing. So if you're comfortable, you're not going to see any growth. So get out there and get uncomfortable. And it's tough for a lot of us. Even me, I have severe anxiety. Like right now, like I'm surprised my foot's not bouncing a million miles an hour right now, but yeah, it's going to be scary, life's scary, but we can't live life with regret. Like, what if I said no to this interview? What if I never met you? Like, what if, your partner and my mother weren't having the best conversation in the world right now, like, and we're all from different walks of life, different cultures. You got to try some culture snacks here today too, like, so why not experience life, like, just get out there and just do it, And don't come for me, Nike. I didn't want to copyright that. Just do it.
Oh, that's good. Wow. Well, yeah, I don't even know what to say, because I was just thinking, I'm like, yeah, it's true. It's like this crazy thing that has happened and still happening, literally just because of this idea that we had. I guess I just probably ask you sort of what I usually wrap up with. I mean, well, first of all, I would ask you, do you have anything else that you want to say about Twitch, the cult, life? Anything that you think like, oh, I would have wanted to touch on this? Like, anything about Chris?
Yeah, so Chris, just, I miss you, and I think about you every day, cuz, like, I love you. Like, we wouldn't be here without you. Like, literally, like, without that Sea-Beam planet, like, I wouldn't have met 2,000 plus people. I wouldn't have friends all over the world without just that, Facebook, Fortnite streams. So shout out to him. But one thing I do want to let y'all know is, back to the mental health, especially anybody out there, men, women, anybody, your kids, like, just talk to people. Like, don't be scared to ask your loved ones if they're okay. Like, generally be there for people. I have this one rule, and it might not be the biggest, but don't go to bed upset. And that is something that I truly mean, because that sets the precedence for the next day. So whether you're fighting, like, with a loved one, or you have disagreement with your children, or your children are having a bad day, make sure you're talking out, and like, let that go, let that tension go. You don't need it no more. Tomorrow's a new day. Start that day fresh. And even if you can't start that day fresh, give yourself grace. Get up, brush your teeth, make your bed, just something small, just get it going, and it's okay to not be okay.
Thanks a lot for talking to me. I appreciate you a lot.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.